Welcome to Longevity Lifestyle Design. This is Zach here with secretsoflongevity.com. Most of you now know that I've been increasing the amount of animal products in my diet. Specifically, 3 months ago I started to introduce flesh foods again. I've been vegetarian pretty much non-stop for over 8 years, maybe even close to 10 years. Sometime in high school I started, and there was definitely one period after I left high school that I was eating sort of a high meat diet, but it was influenced by the book Metabolic Typing, which is a great book, by the way, but it's very much for the mainstream because it doesn't talk about quality of foods all that much. I mean, it says to eat whole foods, but I was doing that, but it was an all-cooked diet, basically, and it was high in factory farmed meat, and I had negative interactions from that, but according to that book, I was a protein type, and I did very well on a higher protein, higher fat diet, and I did feel well in terms of being satiated, and I had certain benefits from it because it was such a processed and bad quality in terms of being factory farmed, grain-fed meat, and the other animal products I was consuming. It didn't do me well in the long term. I got rashes, I got other sort of like a foggy head kind of feeling, and basically after being vegetarian, going back to it and then going to veganism and then going into raw veganism and then sort of going back towards raw vegetarianism, which you've known me probably for the most part talking about, I've decided now to incorporate more flesh foods into my diet, and it's felt great the last 3 months, so I have no intention of stopping. However, I'm not dogmatic about anything, so I go by my own personal results as well as the results I see in others, as well as the scientific evidence, as well as the anthropological evidence. So those are sort of the 4 big factors I always get everyone to examine. That's sort of my premise, is that we have to look at those 4 things: our own experience, the experience of others who are doing well with their health, the scientific basis and research, as well as the anthropological research. That, when you consider all 4 aspects of that, it gives you a very good idea as to what works and what doesn't. Because if you go on any one of these on its own, you're not necessarily going to have the best or most ideal thing for your health, because we all know for ourselves we can be influenced by all sorts of things that could make us think we're doing well, when in fact certain things, we're getting certain signs in ourselves that are telling us we're unhealthy, but we're ignoring them because we've gotten caught up in saying, oh, this is so good for us. And then again, if you take any one of those, you could say on its own it could put you in a place of being unhealthy, but when you consider all of them, it's pretty safe to say that it's a very safe way of eating. So with where I am at now, I'm still eating a lot of raw food. I would call myself high raw. I'm definitely not 100% raw because I'm eating animal foods and I'm cooking them on certain occasions. So I have some questions from people about sort of the intricacies of what results I'm seeing with this. I'll say first of all that overall my energy levels are fantastic because I did have low iron despite eating greens and other things. My iron was low at the end of the winter. Could it be related also to the bodybuilding program I was on, and I was just not getting something that wasn't giving me enough. However, I consume hoshu, I consume a lot of blood-building herbs, and they just weren't giving me what I needed. So I do feel strongly that when we have a really strong genetic or ancestral tendency towards a certain diet, that is ideally, to some degree, what we should lean towards. So being pretty much entirely from the UK, I've got relatives from Scotland, England, and Wales, possibly some Mediterranean in me as well. That is an area where a lot of red meat was consumed. I mean, technically, all our ancestors consumed a lot of red meat back in Paleolithic times, but even more recently, in the last, since sort of traditional agriculture began, my ancestry has been consuming a lot of beef. So with that taken into account, I've found that red meat does give me the most feeling of my blood being able to oxygenate my cells. So heme iron, which is iron from the blood of an animal, or it's in the muscle tissue or the organ tissue, but it's sort of the iron that's preformed and ready for our body to absorb and utilize straight away, is the only found in animal flesh. So when we think of iron in plants, it's called non-heme iron, and that your body has to convert to heme iron. So there is a sort of a step over process, and I haven't seen any evidence of this, but there perhaps could be difficulty for some people in making that transition. So iron deficiency, even when you're consuming iron-rich plant foods, is possible on a vegetarian or vegan diet, in my opinion. So that's been sort of the main thing that got me thinking on consuming flesh foods again, was that result that came up in my blood test. I wanted to add this in, that by far the biggest change that I've found, and this isn't just in the past 3 months, this is since I've started to increase the animal fats in my diet. So I started that last December when I started eating larger quantities of eggs as well as dairy, raw dairy. I found my face has gotten healthier looking, and I've gotten a lot of comments from both people in my life as well as people online that I do look healthier to them. And a lot of people take this for granted, thinking, oh, you know, looks are just a service thing. But a lot has to be said that if we're not looking healthy, we're probably not healthy on the inside. So just take into account what I look like now. It's going to change, obviously, in the future, what I'm going to look like. I might look healthier. If I'm doing things poorly, I might not look as good. Who knows? Of course, I'm hoping, intending, and creating better looks in my life just from the health perspective. However, yes, that vanity aspect to our health does exist, and those that look really sort of gaunt, withdrawn, and sort of like they've just come out of a concentration camp, or other things going wrong with them, they could be too fat. That obviously tells us that that's not a healthy place for us to be at. So the following pictures just kind of document little snippets from my past when I was vegetarian and sort of what I look like over the years. And I've sort of given a brief description of what was going on at that time. The other major thing I've noticed since eating, basically I'm eating one meal a day that has some sort of flesh in it. Basically what I've noticed is that I had a little bit of dry scalp going on. I wouldn't call it full-blown dandruff, because it was definitely related to something to do with the oils in my body or the essential fatty acids. Dandruff technically is a fungal thing. I do unfortunately have chlorine that comes out of my shower. I don't have a shower filter yet. It is high on my priority list, don't get me wrong on that, but it's just something that I don't have at the moment, and so it is very drying to my scalp, and the winter was drying. But since consuming more saturated fat, I've noticed that that has drastically gone down, so that's definitely a big plus. No one likes to have a dry scalp. Other than that, I have no problem with the moisture of my skin, but that was a big one. My teeth have gotten harder. That's probably due to the dairy consumption, which I was doing anyways, but I switched to a better farmer, so I feel more easily able to consume more of it without any fear of contamination. And the cod liver oil is something that I've also been taking. Not the fermented cod liver oil, which would be ideal, but cod liver oil is very rich in A, D, E, and K, which is great for building strong bones and strong teeth. That's a sort of ancient, well-known thing that Weston Price talked about, was the combination of fermented cod liver oil, or even just plain cod liver oil, with grass-fed dairy, or specifically grass-fed butter, or high vitamin butter oil. We're coming up to the time of year where the cows are getting a lot of really lush, fast-growing grass in, so I'm going to start getting some butter from my farm that I've get raw dairy from, and I'll see some improvements with that, I'm sure. And there was some questions about my recommendations for quantities of animal products, because in the past I've said keep them at the most minimal. It really, I think, has to go by what works for you and what doesn't. I wouldn't say I'm eating mostly animal products in my diet. I still eat salad, I still eat various nuts and seeds. Basically, I'm eating some eggs every day, some dairy, one meal has flesh food in it. Might be 50-50, it might be 60-40. I don't know for certain because I'm not trying to keep track of that. But my calories are definitely mostly coming from animal foods, because the plant foods that I'm consuming are mostly greens. Of course, the nuts and seeds there too, but the greens are high in the certain plant minerals that aren't as high in animal products that I consume them for, the chlorophyll, the phytonutrients that are specific to plant foods. I'm going to start doing fruit again, because I haven't been doing much of that at all lately for most of the winter even. Just some blueberries here and there, other berries when they're on sale in the frozen section. But we're getting into some very good fruits at this time of year, so I'll definitely be doing that. Hey, we'll get back to the main topic of this video in just one moment. I wanted to let you know, however, that if you're really enjoying this video, or perhaps you're a regular subscriber, and you'd like to see me continue making regular postings on this channel, Secrets of Longevity, or perhaps even increase the frequency of these postings, of these well-researched videos, and even the articles on my site, I would really appreciate any contribution you're able to make to support me through any of the affiliate links listed below. There's a menu bar that you simply click and it pops down. If you're watching this on another platform other than YouTube, you can double-click this video and it'll take you to YouTube, where you can then click this bar that will pop down to give you these links. So like I mentioned, there's affiliate links. These are all companies I highly recommend and purchase for myself, and I get a percentage of anything that you purchase through these links, and that obviously would support me. And then there's also a link to a donation page on my site where you can make a PayPal donation, and you can also set up a phone consultation if that's something you're interested in doing. So with that, we're going to get back to the video, and thank you for any support you're able to give to me. But in my upcoming video series on specifically the benefits of flesh foods and how they're not as, shouldn't be as vilified as we have been vilifying them, I go into a lot of detail about certain things like specifically the cultures that I would say are the longest lived in the world actually do consume more animal products than National Geographic has led us to believe. Specifically, I'm talking about the Blue Zones book and the work of Dan Buettner, as well as John Robbins' recent book, Healthy at 100. Those have been two books that I really regard highly, but I've come across some information that actually shows that those authors and their perception of what was going on and their way of tracking diet wasn't entirely accurate, and other people that have been to those areas do notice actually larger amounts. So it's not this like 5 to 10% of their diet as animal products, or 5 to 15%. It's more like 20 to 40% of their diet as animal products, even up to 50% in areas like the Hunzas, which consume a whole lot of dairy, goat dairy. They do eat meat about 3 to 4 times a week, which isn't that much, but it's still something more than John Robbins was willing to admit. He just uses non-quantifiable amounts, or like they eat meat sparingly. What does that mean? Well, 3 to 4 times a week is a little more than just sparingly. And then also, if they're eating absolutely ridiculous amounts of cheese, yogurt, and milk, and then eggs on top of that, that's not the most plant-based diet close to being vegan, as he kind of makes it out to be. So I'm not going to get too caught up in the details of why I'm doing this. I'll be doing that in the later video posts. I do want to say I've been reading Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes, and it is very thick. It's over 500 pages, but it is fantastic. It's probably the best thing if you want to really knock down those old paradigms, if you've been really influenced by a lot of the ideas around cardiovascular health, or rather the diet-heart hypothesis or the lipid hypothesis. Those are two different things. Not usually taking into account there that those are two different things, but he really sort of breaks down all the research pointing towards cholesterol and animal foods as being bad for us. And it really becomes apparent that a lot of this basis is flawed. You know, this work from Ansel Keys, which is really sort of what all this whole paradigm is built upon, which is fear of animal fats, fear of cholesterol. And then he further goes on to show that actually low cholesterol puts you at a higher risk for mortality. There's a study in Korea where the longest lived people are the ones with the highest cholesterol. The ones with the lowest have higher rates of cancer and other problems associated with that. So I don't want you guys to think that my channel is going to be all about animal products now. I'm definitely still going to cover a lot of other things. I definitely cover things that are beyond diet quite often, as you know. And I do, and I will still keep covering topics of plant foods and superfoods and herbs and supplements and things that are much beyond animal foods and cholesterol. But I am going to be putting that video series up. I've got to record it, so I'm still getting all the research behind it. It's going to be similar to the one I did a few weeks ago on dairy, which was over an hour long. However, this one's going to be broken up into separate videos, but they'll just be linked. So you can look forward to that. I'm really trying to make this one very complete and covering all the major topics that most people are confused about, especially if they're coming from a vegan paradigm and sort of coming from that mainstream diet heart hypothesis framework. So with that being said, check out any links below that I've got going on to help support me. With that, take care and embrace life without limits.